All right, y'all, good to see you. It is official. We are in back to school time. How many of you are dreading tomorrow and all the early alarms? Yeah, let's be honest. All right, another moment of honesty. How many of you cannot wait for school to get back tomorrow? All the parents in the room, their hands raised up. Teachers and students, not so much. So we're in back to school time, and it is an important few days coming up. And we as pastors and staff and team at Grace Church are praying for you, whether you're an educator, whether you are a student, whether you're a parent, whatever role you play. We are praying for an amazing next few days that set the tone really well for the upcoming school year. Because these next few hours, next few days are all about the essentials. The definition of essential is this: it is absolutely necessary. Say absolutely necessary. And extremely important. Say extremely important. And there are a lot of things that fit in this category when it comes to back to school. For example, school supplies. You know, the school supply list gets longer every year. And maybe you just remembered right now as I'm talking, oh no, I forgot to get that last school supply that I told my kid I was going to get, and now I got to go to Target after this, and there's half the population of Cape Coral at Target right now. You're not alone. It's okay. Or what about the essential back to school first day outfit? You've been planning this for days. Maybe some of you have been planning this for weeks, right? You know exactly what you're going to wear tomorrow, how you're going to look. Or maybe the essential accessories for back to school time. For younger kids, it's the lunchbox and the backpack. For older kids, it gets a little more expensive, and you got to get the new pair of AirPods and the Stanley Cup that they really want. Just how life works, right? Whatever the case may be, it's a time all about the essentials, where we're figuring out what's absolutely necessary and what's extremely important. And we could talk about the essentials for back to school or any other area of life, but I would argue that there are also essentials that play a vital role, a very important part in our faith journey, in our relationship with God. In our journey with Christ as we follow Him, there are certain things that we hold high value on, that God holds high value on, that we have to hold high value on as well. Certain things that will help us understand what it means to truly follow Jesus and to live into the calling that God has for you and for me. And so there are 5 things that we're going to discover together, 5 essentials we're going to look at as we journey over the next few weeks through the book of 1 Thessalonians. Here they are. You ready? It's faith, love, blessing, hope, and calling. So here's what I want to invite you. Over the next 5 weeks, do everything you can to try to be here. As Pastor West joked, it's back to school time for everyone, including us. Because whether you've been following Jesus for 30 seconds or 30 plus years, here's what I have for you. This series is going to do something for you. There's something for you here in this series. Our hope is that maybe these words will get newly defined for you, or maybe even redefined for you as you've known them, as we dive into what these essentials are. And then I also have some homework for you. I know, school hasn't even started yet and I'm giving you homework. What a drag I am, right? What a bore I am. Well, here you go. You ready? Read the book of 1 Thessalonians this week. Can you do that? Say yes. All right, read the book of 1 Thessalonians this week. Here's a hint. You can read 1 chapter a day and still finish by next Sunday. So it's not that long. I'm not telling you to read, like one of those giant books you have to read in English class. Not the case. But go ahead and read 1 Thessalonians. It'll give you a great idea of where we're headed, what we're going to talk about, and a little bit more about that time period. Because here's what's true. You're going to read 1 Thessalonians and you're going to see a familiarity in the words. You're going to see that the church in the world back then is not so different from the church in the world today. We actually get to see a glimpse of how the church in Thessalonica was formed. We see this in the book of Acts. See, Paul and his team had just left Philippi and made it to Thessalonica. And Thessalonica was an affluent, giant city. It had a lot of people in it from a lot of different places. And that meant a collision of cultures. There were different types of traditions, religious traditions and pagan traditions. There were different types of ideals and values and truths that were told, which left the people with a lot of confusion, a lot of questions, a lot of unknown. There were some doubts going on. And so Paul and his team arrive in Thessalonica and begin telling people about the good news of who Jesus is, that he is God's son, died on a cross, rose again, and to follow him and follow the way of Jesus. And as Paul began delivering this news and telling people about it, he saw some pretty incredible results. We see it here from Acts 17. Some of the Jews who listened were persuaded and joined Paul and Silas, along with many God-fearing Greek men and quite a few prominent women. So we see some good results here. This is saying that the news is spreading, people are believing, people are following now in the way of Jesus. But the good times didn't last forever. See, as the message began to spread, there were some Jews who were zealots, meaning they were very hard in their belief, and they were getting aggressive or violent even to defend it. They began out of fear and jealousy, pushing up and pushing back against Paul and the message of Christ. In fact, they even tried to start a riot as Paul continues writing. Some of the Jews were jealous, so they gathered some troublemakers from the marketplace to form a mob and start a what? Say, uh-oh. Uh-oh. They attacked the home of Jason, searching for Paul and Silas so they could drag them out to the crowd. Not finding them there, they dragged out Jason and some of the other believers instead and took them before the city council. Paul and Silas have caused trouble all over the world, they shouted. Pause right here. They know the reputation of Paul and Silas. They know what they're doing, spreading the message of Christ, and they're already aware of it. And now they're here disturbing our city too. They heard of them before, and now they're back disturbing their city. And Jason has welcomed them into his home. This line's important. They are all guilty of treason against who? Caesar. For they profess allegiance to another king named Jesus. See, the rub, the reason there was conflict was because for this group of people, there could only be allegiance to one king, an earthly king, and that king was Caesar, not Jesus. And so when Paul and others were beginning to pledge allegiance toward another king, there was some conflict. And trouble began to bubble up. Eventually, the persecution became too much, and Paul and his team had to leave. Scholars estimate that Paul and his team stayed anywhere from 3 weeks to 3 months in Thessalonica. It wasn't a long stay. And I just want to pause right here. I hope you're catching the similarities between the church in the world then and the church in the world today. See, then there were competing ideals, values, even compromising morals that were directly competing with God's truth, just like today. Then there were people that were trying to tear down the church and tear down followers of Jesus and the reputation of Christ out of their own fear, just like today. Then there were people of the culture and also people of faith that were putting just as much, if not more, trust in who sat on an earthly throne than who actually sat in the heavenly throne, just like today. With an election coming up in November, I think we all need to be mindful of that. Amen? See, there were similarities between the world then and the world today, which means that the letter of 1 Thessalonians has something for us. There's something for us to learn through these words from Paul. Even if we look at that list of essentials and we go, I know all about those 5 things, I'd invite you to make space in your mind and in your heart for maybe learning a little bit more. We can never stop learning from God. Amen? So there's something for us over these next few weeks. And in Paul's letter to the people of Thessalonica, he writes a report. He writes a letter after hearing a report back from Timothy. Timothy was one of Paul's mentees, and Timothy went and visited the people in Thessalonica and heard about the amazing things that God was doing there. So Paul writes a letter in response to Timothy's visit. And in this letter, he highlights 3 big themes that he hits over and over and over again in the letter, and they're right here. Paul talks about their effectiveness, their persistence, and their distinctiveness. He talks about how effective their ministry is, how they're spreading the news of who Jesus is, and more people are coming to faith. He talks about their persistence. Then in the face of hardship and persecution and struggle, they're continuing on. They're not backing down. And he talks about their distinct way of living, how they're living as holy people that are set apart from the culture and world that they're currently in. They're not having the mind of the world, but having the mind and behavior of Christ. If you will, the church of Thessalonica was an answered prayer. See, before this time, when Jesus was moments before his arrest and torture and death on a cross, he was praying a prayer for his followers. And I would argue that the church of Thessalonica lived into this prayer pretty well. Jesus pleads for his followers. He says, I, Jesus, am not asking you, God the Father, to take them, his followers, out of the world, but to keep them safe from the evil one. They do not belong to this world any more than I do. Make them what? Holy by your truth. Teach them your word, which is truth. See, this prayer that Jesus prayed for his followers in the years to come was being lived out right now by the church of Thessalonica. They were set apart. They were living as distinct people. And I don't know about you, but I don't believe that effectiveness, persistence, and distinctiveness are just reserved for the church in Thessalonica. I believe that because God is still at work and his Spirit is working in and through us today, that it can happen here at Grace Church too. Can you say amen? That we can come here week after week and day after day and celebrate a ministry that's effective. More people coming to know the hope found in Jesus. That we can be a ministry, a church that persists in the face of hardship and struggle. We can be a church that persists and keeps on going. Doesn't back down from our calling and our mission. That we could be a church that lives distinct, lives as different than what the world says because we are holy and set apart followers of Jesus. This is the church we can have today too. It's not just the church of Thessalonica, it's the church of today as well. Can I get a yes on that? It's what I want in on. And it all starts with our first essential of faith. It's where it all begins. See, if we had to think about the definition of faith from our world's perspective versus God's perspective, I think there's a big difference. So if I had to summarize the world's definition of faith in one sentence, I'd say this, that the world's definition of faith is trust and assurance in what we can see. It's what's right in front of us, then we put our trust in it. I'll give you some quick examples. How many of you this week did at least one Google search? Raise your hand. Right, yeah, almost everybody, right? You can put your hand down. Or what about AI? Like maybe you use ChatGPT this week or Perplexity or one of the other AI programs for you to be able to get some advice or have a prompt answered or something like that. Chances are you've done something like that within the past week. Hopefully you haven't done a Google search in the past 5 minutes. That'd be crazy. Maybe you Googled that school supply you forgot to buy and you're like, your mind's still there trying to find it from Amazon for tomorrow. But whatever the case may be, we are starved and craved information. The reason for this, the reason we do this, we Google search, we AI, we do all that, is because we want to have enough info and enough evidence for us to then be able to place our faith and trust in something. It's all about what we can see. I even saw this in my own daughter, Gemma. So we're a big Disney family, and so the last time we went to Disney, Gemma rode, are you ready for it? Big Thunder Mountain Railroad. Yeah, like the big with the train, the mountains, and Frontierland. It was awesome. And so when we were getting ready to go there, this was the time that Gemma was going to ride it. And we were like, hey, why don't you do this? Why don't you do this? And Gemma just began asking a lot of questions, like back to back to back. She was like, well, like what do the cars look like? And I'm like, well, they look like trains. And she's like, wait, is it a train? I'm like, no, it's not a train. It's a roller coaster car, but it looks like a train. She goes, does it go choo-choo? I'm like, no, there's no train. It's just a car. Then she's like, well, how many drops? And I'm like, I don't know, 10? She's like, 10? And I'm like, I don't know, like 8. She goes, 8? I'm like, I don't know, just a bunch of drops. You'll be fine. And she's like, does it go upside down? I'm like, no, it doesn't go upside down. She goes, does it go sideways? I'm like, yeah, it goes sideways. The questions just kept coming. So then finally, I'm like, let's just watch a video. So I pull up a video, and we're in Big Thunder Mountain, and it's like a video where you can watch it as if you're riding it. So she watches that, and she's studying it like a quarterback watching game film. She's just like, first turn, got it. The up, got it. Down, got it. I mean, she's studying the video, right? And so I just keep saying, like, Jim, you got to trust me. You got to trust me. It's going to be awesome. You're going to love it. You already did this ride, and this this is like the same as those. And so finally, we get to Big Thunder Mountain, and I kind of push her on because she's really scared. Oh, it's going to be great. And she loved it. She loved it. It's like her favorite ride now. But here's the deal. For Gemma, it took a video, answering a bunch of questions, and a little push from Dad, in order to get on the ride. For her to be able to place her faith and trust in the ride, she had to have all that first. What happens in life when we don't get answers to all of our questions? What happens in life when there's no YouTube video that shows us exactly what's going to happen? Well, then the world's definition of faith is shot. Here's God's definition of faith. You ready? The author of Hebrews describes it. Read it with me. Ready, set, go. Now, faith is confidence in what we hope for and assurance about what we do not see. oh, God's got a different definition of faith. The kingdom definition of faith is not about placing our trust in what we can see. It's about placing our trust and faith in what we cannot see. There's a different economy in God's kingdom. It's not about getting all the info and then putting our trust in it. It's about trusting in the person of who God is, and that's why we can trust in it. It's a big difference. It's a big difference. It's the starting point. This idea of trusting in what we cannot see is the starting point on our journey with Jesus. Because we place our faith in a Savior that is present, but might not physically sit in the chair next to you right now. It's placing our faith and trust in the unseen. It's placing our faith and trust in the power of God and the presence of God, that even when we can't see it, He is there and He is working. And when we say yes to Him, when we say yes to Jesus, placing our faith in Him as the Lord and Savior of our life, we find the freedom from the penalty and power of our sin. It's the starting point of salvation. It's by grace through faith we are saved. It's the starting point for us, friends. And maybe today is your starting line. If you've never said yes, or maybe you need to say yes again. Life's gotten the best of you. Your life's gone off the tracks. I want to invite you to say yes or yes again today to Jesus as being the Lord and Savior of your life. Talk to Pastor West or myself. We'd love to pray with you. We'd love to celebrate that with you. But you can do that today. You can do the very thing that this text talks about. And by doing this, you'll have hope again. In a room this size with this many people, I know there's some of us who are running out of hope right now. You've had a really hard go. You've had expectations that haven't lived up to what you thought. You've had disappointments. You've had tragedy, and you're running out of hope. Can I tell you today that you don't have to ever run out of hope as a follower of Jesus? Because hope's not in what's seen. Hope is in the unseen. Hope is in faith in what we cannot see. If you're a follower of Jesus and you're here today, you're running out of hope, I pray that you don't leave this place without hope. Let somebody pray over you. Let somebody talk to you. Let somebody encourage you so you can leave this place filled with faith and hope. Can I get a yes on that today? All right. Because that was what the people of Thessalonica were. The church of Thessalonica were people that were filled with faith. And we see in Paul's letter to them evidence of that in the very introduction. See, the first few verses of the letter are what we call a classic Paul introduction. He introduces himself. He greets the church in Thessalonica. He tells them what he's going to talk about. And then Paul writes about this progression that happens that scholars have picked up on too. This progression with the people that's happened that has three different movements. We're going to read all the verses together, and then we're going to break down each one quickly. Here's what Paul writes. He says, "For when we brought you the good news, it was not only with words, but also with power. For the Holy Spirit gave you full assurance that what we said was true. And you know of our concern for you from the way we lived when we were with you. So you received," say received. "So you received the message with joy from the Holy Spirit in spite of the severe suffering it brought you. In this way, you imitated," say imitated. "You imitated both us and the Lord. As a result, you have become an example." Say become an example. "You have become an example to all the believers in Greece throughout both Macedonia and Achaia." So with this, there's a movement within the people that happens from the time Paul brings them the word. It's got three parts. You just said those three out loud. The first thing that happens is this: they received. So they received the message from the Holy Spirit with joy. So to receive something, this by the way, is the catalyst for the transformation. Like, we got to first receive the word. It doesn't mean that word received. It doesn't mean, if I have to hear this, I guess I will. This isn't Eeyore, okay? This is receiving with joy. In the original Greek, it means to welcome kindly, to accept kindly. It's receiving the word with hospitality, not with hostility. That's what that word received means. It's receiving it with joy. It's having an open mind and open heart to receive the word. In fact, James, the half-brother of Jesus, doubles down on this idea that even in the face of suffering, we can still receive it with joy. Here's what James writes. "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great" what? Joy. "For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow." So why is this? Why can we be filled with joy in the face of suffering? Is this like a thing where we have to fake it, where like the walls of our life are caving in? If someone asks how we are, we have to go, oh, I'm just too blessed to be stressed. It's not it. No, you're allowed to say, today's been really hard. Here's why. Because no matter how hard the walls fall down of our life, God is still good. God is still present. God is still loving. God is still grace-filled. And I would dare say, testify to my own life, I would dare say that it was in the moments where my life was the worst that God's message brought me the most joy. It was in the moments when I was a middle school kid and my family was falling apart that I heard God's message of reconciliation and redemption, and it filled me with great joy. When I was a college student trying to figure out what to do with my life at a crossroads, and I heard about God's calling for my life and God's purpose for me, it filled me with great joy. When I was a husband and a dad and unresolved wounds from my past were spilling over and hurting the people I love and hurting myself, and I heard God's message of healing for me, it brought me great joy. See, the moments of my life where God's message has been the most joyous and filled me with the most joy were the moments of my life that on the outside you could say are the very worst and rock bottom. Because God's message rings loudest when we are weak. It fills us with joy. So if you're here today and your life has been anything but joyful, I pray that you receive the word of Christ today and receive God's joy in the midst of it. It is possible. And as followers of Jesus, we're not done with just receiving the word. No, because there's a progression here. We don't just receive it, we have to imitate it too. Paul says, in this way, imitate both us and the Lord. And there's a difference here, right? See, receiving the Lord, or receiving the message is just about hearing, but not necessarily doing. Imitating means we take the next step to actually doing what the message is. Wouldn't we agree there's a difference between just hearing and then actually doing the thing? If you need evidence of this, just ask my wife, Elisa. She's in the front row. I will often hear what she says and not do it all the time. Please don't elbow your spouse or person next to you. Just know we're not alone, friends. So Elisa will ask me, like, hey, can you clean this thing or can you take out the trash? And I'll hear her, but then it'll still sit in the trash can or it'll still be dirty. Or this amazing thing happens where she'll tell me to run to Target and pick up 5 things, and I somehow only come home with 2. Some of you have the other problem where, like, if Elisa and I switched roles and I said, Elisa, can you go to Target and get me 5 things? She brings home 50. I don't know how that happens. just does. I don't know. Maybe you have that problem too. I don't know. But it's different. It's different between receiving the word. Oh, I'm in trouble for that one. It's different between. I'm just not even going to finish today. Let's just pray. This isn't going to be a good lunch. It's different. Yeah, I'm stopping now. It's going to be different. It's different between receiving the word and imitating it. One is hearing and the other is doing. One is hearing, the other is actually living it out. Friends, the saving work of Jesus is too great to merely just hear. We have to imitate it. We have to do as he did and do as he says. That means it's not enough to just agree with loving our enemies. We have to actually love them. It's not enough to agree with serving the least of these. We have to take time to serve. It's not enough to just agree with forgiving others who have wronged you. We have to do the hard work to hit a place where we can actually forgive them. We have to imitate, not just receive. James doubles down on this again. He says, but don't just listen to God's word. You must what? Do what it says. Otherwise, you're only fooling yourselves. We have to be doers of the word, not just hearers. So the third thing is this. If we receive it, if we imitate, then guess what happens? We become an example. See, Paul says as a result of this, by receiving and imitating, as a result, you have become an example to all the believers. See, what Paul's saying here in his compliment to them is they are the top of the line, top-notch, premium, best all-star out there right now. of being an example of what it means to be a follower of Jesus during that time. He's saying they are the model because they have embodied the good news, they've embraced the gospel, and they're living it out in such a way that it's impacting other people. If you want a difference between an imitator and being an example, I'd say this. Imitating is about what you get out of it, the blessing that you get by forming into the likeness of Jesus. Becoming an example is about what happens to others and the impact it has on other people. It's not a focus shifted inward with imitating, it's a focus shifted outward with being an example that allows God to work through you to impact other people. Notice what Paul said, the other believers heard about it and their lives were changed. In fact, Paul continues writing here. He says, and now the word of the Lord is ringing out from you to people everywhere, people even beyond Macedonia and beyond Achaia. For wherever we go, we find people telling us about your what? Your faith in God. So when we put all this together, when we receive, when we imitate, when we're an example of the Lord, what becomes the indicator for other people that they chase after? It's our faith. It's faith lived out. See, the movement of the church of Thessalonica was a movement of faith. It was faith in the face of persecution and adversity and hardship and not backing down from the calling they had been given in order to see more people follow the way of Jesus. And here's more evidence of their faith. Paul continues writing. He says, we don't need to tell them about it, meaning like we don't need to tell these other places, these other believers, these other churches about it, for they keep talking about the wonderful welcome you gave us and how you turned away from idols to serve the living and true God. And they speak of how you are looking forward to the coming of God's Son from heaven, Jesus, whom God raised from the dead. He is the one who has rescued us from the terrors of the coming judgment. So notice, these believers, they learned from their leaders of Paul and Silas. Even seeing that description of them that Paul is celebrating them for and encouraging them with. Think about the example of Paul and Silas. They faced their fair of hardships, didn't they? They faced physical violence, insults to their character, attacks on their integrity, even imprisonment. And yet in the face of it all, they remained persistent. They remained faithful. They stayed on course for what it is God had called them to do, to let people know about the way of Jesus. And these followers, they followed the example of their leaders, Paul and Silas. And they held an unwavering faith in the face of hardship and persecution. A faith so great that they did the action that I think for a lot of us is hard to even today to do. To turn away from idols or sin and turn towards serving the living and true God. What became the action that people noticed about them? They turned away from the idols and away from the things that the culture and the world were telling them to follow, and they turned toward serving the living and true God. They turned from, but they also turned toward, which is super important. It's not enough for us to just turn from something. Like if I tell you, don't think about a pink polka dot elephant walking down the middle of the sanctuary right now. What's the only thing you're thinking of? A pink polka dot elephant walking through the middle of the sanctuary right now. But if I told you, don't think about that elephant, and instead focus on the person of Jesus and imagine if he was sitting right next to you right now. And he put his arm around you, and he whispered the thing that you need to hear the most in your ear. You've forgotten I even talked about an elephant, didn't you? Because you're focused on the person of Jesus. It's the same thing, friends. We can try to turn away from stuff all day. We can try to do behavior correction for our sin and stop. We can try to turn off all the news and turn off all the bad things. But at the end of the day, if our focus doesn't just turn from, but also turn toward the living and true God, we're still missing it. We're still missing it. Because we can turn away from sin, but we have to turn towards salvation and the saving power of God. We can turn away from death, but we have to turn toward life found in Christ. We can turn away from sorrow, but we need to turn toward the joy found in the Lord. It's not just turning away, but it's turning toward too. It's a turn that all of us are invited to make Another word for this is repent. We turn from something, just like Taryn, the vow she made not too long ago, to turn from an old life and turn toward a new life. That's what this is. And in this case, it's turning toward a life following the true and living God. No matter where you're at, no matter what turn you need to make, here's what I want to invite you to do. When that uncertainty and adversity come, turn toward God. Let's read this together. Ready, set, go. When uncertainty and adversity come, turn toward God. No matter what turn you need to make, no matter where you're standing, make the turn toward God. This is what faith looks like lived out. In the face of uncertainty, in the face of adversity, in the face of hardship, your first move is to turn toward God. And for some of us, that turn looks a little different, depending on where we're at in this journey with Jesus. And I want to suggest 3 next steps, 3 turns we make, and I want to go back to the text to do so. The first is some of us, we need to receive. We have hardened our hearts. We've closed our mind and our heart off to the fact that maybe God is real, that God is good, that God is true, that God's word is for you. We're not even willing to receive. And today I want to invite you to take the next step of opening your heart and opening your mind to the reality that God's word might just be for you, that God might be good, and it might be true. Begin to let that change your life. For others of us, though, we need to imitate. We've received the word, we know what it says, but our lives and our actions are not lining up with imitating what that word says. So some of us, instead of just agreeing we need to love our enemies, we need to take a step this week to actually begin to pray for them. Instead of just saying, yeah, it's good to serve others, and that's a good thing to do, and I need to make time for it, yeah. For some of us, we need to take the next step of putting it in our schedule of when we're going to do something. Others of us, though, we need to be an example. Where we've turned the focus inward on our own soul and our own journey with Jesus, and that's important. We grew in the likeness of him. We're starting to imitate him more and live out what he says. But it's time to shift that focus from inward to outward, to how that impacts other people. So it's not just about, I don't hate my enemy anymore, good for me, but I now get to be an example of Jesus even to my enemy, that God might use that and transform them. This is hard work, but we never know the impact it will have. We never know the lives that are touched by us just being an example. And when I think of examples, some of the best examples in today's world, I think about our educators. I think about the way they serve day in and day out, dozens of hours a week on the front lines with kids and students and families, to be able to be an example of Jesus' light and love in sometimes an often dark place. And when we talk about the essentials of back to school, I'd put educators at the top of the list, wouldn't you agree? And so we want to take a moment now, and we want to do something we've done here for a lot of years at Grace Church, and we want to pray for educators that they would be blessed and commission them for this upcoming school year. So I want to invite educators to make their way forward now. Come stand in front of the altar. And here's what I mean when I say educator. I mean someone who's a teacher, an assistant, an administrative staff or office staff, food service, bus driver, in public, private, or homeschool. We're not trying to put boundaries or guardrails on this, okay? You all play a vital role. You all play a massive influence in the lives of the next generation. And so Pastor West in just a moment is going to say a quick word to you and pray for you. And then we have a small gift for you. My friend Kelly over here has some gift cards. Consider it our small gift to you we're going to buy your coffee for the first couple days when those alarms go off really early, okay? That's kind of our gift to you. Pastor West, go ahead.
I want to say thank you so much for being here, and I want to encourage all of us, let's give our thanks to these folks for all the ways that they serve and give. I say it before you not only as a pastor, but as the son of a teacher, as the husband of a teacher, and as the father of a teacher. So my son, my wife, and my mom all are spending their career in education, and I've seen behind the curtain is what I'm getting at. And I know that this is not a job that you just go clock in, clock out, never think about it. while you're not there. This is a calling, and you put all you got into it, I know, with very little recognition, except for those that are closest to you that see all that you sacrifice. And I want you to know that we see you. We see you today, and we are grateful for you. And we want to bless you and commission you now for this ministry assignment that God has for you. So I want to invite you to kneel, and I want to invite those that are able, if you'll lift a hand and just let's extend it towards these folks, and let's bless them today and commission them. Lord Jesus, we thank you so much for these who have said yes to you, and that you plan on using in mighty ways, that you have used in incredible ways to touch hearts and transform lives. And Lord, today we lift up 3 blessings for them. And we ask with boldness, because you invited us to. And we pray that, Lord, today you would fill these educators, first of all, with faith. That they would have what Taylor's been talking about. That they would have that mustard seed belief in you to keep going when they cannot see what the future holds, or what the answer is, or what the next step needs to be, that they would cling to you and have that trust in you, knowing that you are with them always. You've gone ahead to every hallway, every classroom, every dining room table, every bus, every lunchroom. Lord, you are already present and at work in lives. So Lord, bless these teachers and these educators and these faculty members, first of all, with faith. Secondly, Lord, we ask that you would give them hearts full of hope. Hope is oxygen to the soul. And Lord, they're going to need to take some deep breaths. And you're going to be there with them to breathe into them new life so that they can see the hope and potential of children who may have nobody else to believe in them, of coworkers who might be struggling, of fellow workers that might need some encouragement. Lord, fill these, your sons and daughters, with hope. And last and best of all, Lord, we ask that you would help them this year to live lives of love. That you would just fill them with the full measure of your love and grace. That they might spill out onto other people with agape love, the love of the will and the choice, the love that comes from you. And Lord, we pray that you would use that for your glory so that children might experience, teenagers might experience your love lived out through these whom you love. And so, Lord, today we commission them for this incredible ministry. And we commission them today and send them in the name of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. And all those agreeing with this prayer said, amen. One more time, let's give God thanks for these educators.
So as educators, as you make your way back to your seats, see Kelly and Sherry for that gift card for your coffee. As they make their way back to their seats, I want to invite the rest of you to, would you stand with me? Let's stand up together. It's easy during this time of commissioning educators and the important role they play to almost pass that off and go, well, that's them and that's not me. You might not be an educator, but you are sent as well. You are a sent person as a follower of Jesus. And that same blessing of being a light and a conveyor of faith, hope, and love, just like those educators were, it's true for you too. And so we commission you, wherever you go this week, whoever you come into contact with, would you live as a sent follower of Jesus wherever you're at? To help strengthen all of our faith, to embolden us and encourage us to be able to maybe take a step this week we normally wouldn't take. We're going to sing a great new song together we've been singing called Trust in God. And I want to invite you to make this song your prayer as you sing it. If you want to come up here and kneel and pray at the altar, you can. You can come up here, lift a hand, someone will pray with you. Or you can make your seat a place of prayer as well. Let's worship together.